Because I
right, because that's right.
Right.
Your agenda. I mean, to do it well and do it right.
No, I.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It's really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But did she apply?
Every time you buy them,
Like,
and now, and they're nice for the children. You know? Stuff. Yes, certainly. Yeah.
I really want to know what the answer
No. Yes.
She came back with these comments like, well, this is.
But
Oh, yeah.
At the time,
You know, I mean, we couldn't get one if I provided
white oh, I don't know. I know I didn't see anything.
I know, that's what they tell us. Exactly.
But
So that's what I was
Yeah.
yes. Oh, no. Nice sound. I think they should.
This meeting of the Livingston City Commission is called to order. May we have roll call, please?
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Present.
Commissioner Freeman,
Present.
Commissioner Sandberg, Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Next, we will have a moment of silence. Thank you. Please rise for the pledge.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first thing on our agenda tonight is to honor a special member of our community, and I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Cardus.
I'm gonna pass it right on over to Chief. Come on, Chief.
So tonight, I would like to present a couple things to people to you. Excuse me, first off, firefighter Drew Franz, he's our latest new employee. He started back in April, March. And he is in Northern Paramedic School and within minutes of being finished now, will be a full-fledged firefighter paramedic very, very soon. He's been a very outstanding employee, of course. Really glad to have him on board with us.
Welcome.
Secondly, I'd like to present Captain Andy Marlowe, who announced his retirement from the city of Livingston last week. His last day will be September 22, his last shift will be September 28th. He's been with us for 22 years, been a captain for 16, 17 years. He's the second longest tenured employee with the fire department, one of the more senior employees of the city. And after 22 years, he's moving on to greener pastures and looking forward to retirement. On the Friday the 27th, I believe it is, we're having a little get together in the engine bay for Andy for his retirement. So if you're available, we'd love to see you there. We thank for anybody in the public who wants to come join us. Honor and respect him for his years of service with the city. Thank you. Congratulations to both.
Andy, could you come up? We'll shake your hand too. Thank you so much. Sorry. We appreciate it. You're too young, by the way.
Thank you.
No?
Happy retirement. Thank you.
Thanks for your years of service, Andy. We have an amendment to our agenda tonight. We have action item F. And I would like to move action item F to the top before consent items. To after consent items. Could I have a motion from the commission to move action item F to the top?
Make a motion to move action item F to the top of the agenda. Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Friedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Bennett,
Four.
Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Motion passes. So now, after the consent items, we'll do action item F. Do we have a motion on consent items A, B, C, and D from the commission, or does anyone have any that they would like to pull? See, it's our switched online. Okay. I don't know why, but it always prints in correctly on mine. And every week I do this. Okay, so we're gonna actually move the agenda item, action item to the top before public comment, please. And since we already made the motion correctly or close. So tonight,
To the top.
that's true, to the top. So tonight we have had a request from one of our commissioners to resign from the commission. Sarah Sandberg, one of our commissioners, has requested to resign based on her work schedule and feeling like it's hard to fulfill her role as a commissioner. So do I have a motion from the commission to accept the resignation of Sarah Sandberg from the city commission?
I move we accept the resignation of Sarah Sandberg.
Second.
So we have a motion by Lee and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Huntley,
Yes,
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Freeman,
Four.
Commissioner Maybe.
Four.
motion passes. So there's a process in accepting a resignation and the steps involved. I think I'm missing part of my. Oh, okay. So, what's his name? Sorry. So now that we have accepted the vacancy of the position and have stated it within an agenda item within an amended agenda item, we need to request of the commission, or I'm sorry, of the city to direct their staff to publish in the local newspapers once per week for 2 successive weeks, a posting of the application for the filling of this position. And so in the next 2 weeks, we will post it 1 day a week for 2 weeks. And then from that time on, any interested person will apply. The application will be on the site by the end of tomorrow. And we have 30 days to go through the process of filling the position. I have been on the commission when it was done before, so was Mel. Quentin is here because of the filling of a position that had been vacated. So the process is not too bad. It takes people applying. So if you know an interested person who would like to work for the people of our community, please ask them to apply. And then after 30 days, within that 30 days, we'll go through an application process and interview process in a public meeting. And then vote on the candidate as a commission. Right? So there's the process. And I would like to thank Sarah for her work that she has done to help our community. And I think we have done a lot in the past 2-3 years, more than sometimes shows, but I think we have done a lot. And I think she's been on for almost 2 years. And so I would like to thank her. So next on our agenda is our scheduled public comment. Please come up to the podium and state your name and your address and sign in. Also remember that whatever you discuss at the podium at this time should not relate to or should not be one of the items on the agenda. You can discuss at that time during that agenda item what you would like. Any public comments? Last call. Public comment. Okay. So tonight we have 4 consent items. Do I have a motion, or do you have any that would like to be pulled tonight? I actually do have one. I would like to pull consent item C just for a few minutes to ask something. Would that be okay to discuss first? Thank you. So I have a question, Michael, for our parking spaces, not Rosalie's parking space in general, but I know through the years that we have approved quite a few in the time I have been on, and in 5 years or so, and I'm just wondering if you could give us an update somehow, and maybe in an email or some type of update on the numbers and how, what do we do with them after? Because parking is a very important thing to our community in a lot of areas. And so I'm just curious what the process is, and as far as what we do when the spot maybe opens up again and how we go through that process. So Could I get that from?
Give me an answer now if you'd like.
Oh, great, that'd be awesome.
And if there's more information, then we can add on to it later. In general, the policy has always been those that show a need are assigned the parking space. That parking space is assigned to the person, to the placard, almost, if you would, the actual handicap placard. So it moves with them if they move. So if they move to a different residence, they can move that slot with them to a new residence. The old one goes away. If at some point they are no longer driving and they don't have a placard, or if by any of the means that they don't have the placard, then that spot goes away. It is individually to that number. And that's why when you look at the signs, you'll see the numbers on them. It's very specific. It's not just open handicap parking. It is specifically for that person in the residence. So once that goes away, that spot goes away. Currently, I think since 2013, we have approved about 23 slots. So that's total for the city. Total that are currently active, so approved before 2013 and after 2013, somewhere in the 45 range, 44 to 45. So that's the total number in the city, and then they get updated based on the placards and stuff.
So we have about 4 to 5 at this time. Any other questions from commissioners on it? So do I have a motion for consent items A through D?
I'll make a motion to approve consent items A through D.
Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Navy. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Mayhew.
4.
Motion passes. Tonight we have one public hearing. We have resolution number 4823, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, discontinuing and vacating a portion of the undeveloped North D Street between Montana Street and the Livingston Ditch, and between blocks 23 and 24, all located in the original town site of the City of Livingston, Montana. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is, I think it's the 4th time you've seen this all together, but this is the 2nd reading of this particular resolution. This does vacate the remainder of D Street. It's not the entirety of D Street between Gallatin and Montana, as the lower portion was vacated earlier. So this portion is vacated between Montana Street and the currently vacated portion, which is in the vicinity of the Livingston Ditch. It will go back to the original landowners on both sides, split down the middle. It has gone before the Parks and Trails Committee. They've looked at it and don't have any objections to this particular piece being vacated back to the original property owners.
Thank you. Any public comment on, sorry, I have to open the hearing. There is
This
a-
one's just a resolution, just.
We don't-
you know,
I open this public hearing on resolution number 4823. Any public comments would come at this time? This hearing is closed. Commissioners, do we have any comments or questions at this time on resolution number 4823? I do. I'm the only one tonight. Michael, I have a question. So when it comes to vacating a street or, I guess an alley in this case, can you vacate only partial? Can we request partial and say, oh, this part could be used for a trail, or this part might need to have access to, say, another alley or something like that?
In this case, it depends case to case. You can, in fact, I think we did that down on Geyser somewhere, where we took what was the original street easement and took it down to a 10-foot easement for a future path. So that is an option in some places. In this case, it would be harder to justify just because it doesn't link anywhere. We would only have it down to where it's already been vacated completely. So yes, it is an option, and it depends on how you want to do it. So it is an option for future vacations. I'm not sure it makes sense for this particular one just because it's a dead end already. that the entire easement vacated at D Street at the bottom.
So I was thinking, say, a trail came from, would you receive here? Or C, and then over towards E and up. And another, undeveloped alleyway. Could a part of that be designated, like the bottom half, the bottom part, say, a 10-foot? Part of the easement.
That alleyway, I believe, still exists, so that easement's already there.
Okay, so there's a cross.
Yeah, from C to E. Jim, is that correct, Jim? Yeah, so that alley, I guess it would be the alley for Gallatin. I'm not sure which alley it is, but it is, it does go all the way through from C to E.
Okay. All right, but you can take a section of the request and then the abandonment and for future reference.
Yes. Yep, and I think we have done that in the past.
Guys are going towards the,
Towards Flushman.
Flushman, yeah. All right, that's all I have. Thank you. So, do we have anything before we ask for a motion? Do I have a motion on resolution number 4023?
Yeah, Madam Chair, make the resolution that we pass 4823.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Freeman and a second by Navy. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Freeman,
Four.
Commissioner Gager.
Yes.
Motion passes. Tonight we have no ordinances. We have two resolutions. We have resolution number 4024, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, of its intent to amend the budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 by making appropriations adjustments in the amount of $13,285. Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an adjustment we found during our audit to the fire truck bond proceeds. So there is an additional $13,285 that will come out of fund reserve for the fire truck bond. We brought more in on that bond than we anticipated because it's a mill, not a set amount. So the mills were higher than anticipated. So this just gives budget authority for that amount that came in extra on taxes.
Do we have any public comment on resolution number 4824? Any commissioner questions or comments? Do I have a motion from the commission on resolution number 4824?
Make a motion to approve resolution 4824.
Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Freeman,
Four.
Commissioner Gager.
Motion passes. Next up on our agenda is resolution number 4822-A. A resolution, no, 22, sorry, not dash A. Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Livingston, Montana, declaring certain property as surplus and directing that said property be sold. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is for our annual surplus auction that's taking place on the 21st. In the agenda, you can see starting on page 62 is the list of either impounded items, abandoned items, or city surplus items that are currently proposed to be auctioned off this Friday. You see there's actually a pretty long list of impounded vehicles, which should allow us to start going again. But we are happy to answer any questions on those items in particular, but otherwise this is just giving us authorization to hold the auction.
Do we have any public comment on resolution number 4822? All right, commissioners, do we have any questions, comments? The only thing is it's Friday the 21st at what time?
5 o'clock? 6
That's a
o'clock.
preview.
Yeah, preview starts at 5, actual auction starts at 6.
Do I have a motion from the commission on resolution number 4822?
So, Madam Chair, I make a proposal that we pass resolution 4822.
Second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Moody. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Four.
Commissioner Freeman,
Pass.
Commissioner Bailey.
Four.
Four.
Motion passes. Tonight we have 5 action items. 6 counting the amendments, but we need to complete A through E. First action item is to discuss approve deny City of Livingston Commission to consider Montana Main Street Program. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this has been a community effort, really. This is a program that we've wanted to apply to for quite a while. We just haven't had the time to do it. There've been a few community members that stepped up. PCBC helped us out. Jennifer Magic has spent a lot of time specifically doing this. They've got a lot of public support. If you look on page 76, you can see a partial list of the letters of support that have come in already. There's 18 there. I think I have at least one more that we need to get in time to include in the package. So there's quite a bit of community support for this program. This is the Montana version of the Main Street USA program. Once we are members, we're allowed to apply for grants for certain projects, planning documents, that type of thing. You can see some of them on the website if you go there. There is a completed application that the PDF can print out, the filled in one, so we do have a copy of the one that's already been filled out. Once you give me authorization to sign it, we can go forward with the process from there. At that point, once we submit the application, the Department of Commerce will get involved. We'll have to schedule some community meetings, go through some of the plans for the actual program here in Livingston itself. But it should be a great program for us. It's a wonderful, I think, model that the community helped step up and get this accomplished when we didn't have the resources to do it as a city. So I think it's a win-win.
Any public comment on action item?
Yes, Leslie Feigl, Livingston Chamber of Commerce. I guess my only comment would be, how to fix this. But if there is I don't know what the plan is overall, if there's going to be a committee, a board, a group that will be meeting to be able to put forward any of the forthcoming plans that the Livingston Chamber and CBB was part of that. I did write a letter in support, but this is something that, the Office of Tourism, the Department of Commerce are merged. So this is something that we're very aware of and different ways that we can help our community. So I'm just asking that, thank you, that once we are told that there's going to be a committee or a board that I again could be a part of that, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, question off of what Leslie stated, if it passes, the process of developing a board, or is that a requirement of this?
There are requirements that are set forth by the Department of Commerce, and we'll follow all those procedures. And it's a pretty public process, so there'll be a lot of involvement community-wide, and there'll absolutely be room for everybody to be involved in that process.
So is this led by the community or the city?
It technically is the city that's applying, so it's city-led. In this case, the work was community-led, but we're still the ones signing up to be the head of the process as far as the Department of Commerce is concerned.
Any other public comment on Main Street program application? Michelle Barada, 711 Lock Lane. I just want to start by thanking City Manager Michael Curtis for taking the time to meet with community members and being so open and receptive to the process, working with the Park County Environmental Council, the Community Foundation, and then of course Jennifer Magic. So thank you so much. I think this is a really exciting opportunity for Livingston, and the participation in the program makes great sense. According to the Department of Commerce's website, there are 27 communities that are members in the Main Street program across Montana. Many of those communities are similar to Livingston, Red Lodge, Glasgow, Glendive, Townsend, and larger communities as well. And like Mr. Cardo said, communities have used this program to improve their main streets, through technical and financial assistance from the Department of Commerce. From the Main Street website, the Montana Main Street program helps communities strengthen and preserve their historic downtown, commercial districts through economic development, urban revitalization, and historic preservation through long-range planning, organization, design, and promotion. So we looked at this and thought it makes perfect sense for Livingston. And there were many members of the community that agreed. We worked together, gave 20 letters of support for this. And thank you to the chamber for writing a letter as well. And of course, the communities have secured funding for lots of different efforts, including master plans, transportation plans, historic preservation plans, streetscape design, and even growth policies. And that's really what caught our attention was the recognition from the commission that we would really like to update our growth policy, but we're lacking the funding. And here's an opportunity to apply some funding for that. And of course, we also know that the city may find other uses for that funding, and we would support whatever the community decides, but thought the growth policy was a great opportunity. And then we also urge the city to move fast. The window for applying is October 1st to December 31st, and the Department of Chamber does require a community meeting, which I think would be the great benefit for the whole community to understand the process. But Mr. Cardos knows about that process. So thank you again for your effort, and we fully support the city moving forward with this application. Any other public comments on action item?
Patricia Grabo, 204 East Calendar Street, President of the Livingston Downtown Building Owners and Business Association. I too want to thank our city manager for his working so well with the community. And this is a program that the community is familiar with. There are resources that are really remarkable in this program, as well as a network with the National Main Street. I personally attended the National Main Street conference in Seattle, Washington, and the resources there were amazing. Parking, nationally, what different communities are using, and a lot of solutions to things that we're facing. So our organization has a letter of support among the other 19, and certainly would appreciate your considering this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Any other public comment on action item 8? Commissioners, any questions and comments?
I look forward to joining. I remember when I served on this for preservation commission, we were looking at it at that time. Long past it's time.
I appreciate the hard work that people have gone in or done and gone into this project or request, I should say. I think that it's an example of our community working together well, which I think we get along more than we fight. So I appreciate this. So do I have a motion on action item?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass action item A.
I will second.
I have a motion by Freeman and a second by Schwartz. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Conlon,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
4.
Commissioner Freeman,
4.
Commissioner Levy.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda is action item B. Discuss, approve, deny, provide direction for city manager for legislative priorities. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one is kind of a new one, I think, for the commission and maybe for how the city has done things in the past. The intent is to bring a series of legislative initiatives that either are currently working their way through the State House or could work their way through the State House or may be important locally. For us to look at as a commission to get public input on, because we do, like the MLCT, the League of Cities and Towns annual conference is coming up. They are our lobbyists, for lack of a better word. If we have strong feelings on any of these initiatives, or at least ones that are statewide, we should be taking that to them and putting forward Livingston's desires to them before they go to the State House and speak against go forward bills. So the ones I gave you were mainly ones that are coming out of committee. The interim committees, in the meantime, will be on the state floor that I think have at least some effect on the city of Livingston. There's also a couple that are just being talked about that aren't drafts yet. So you have some drafts and some are just issues. So the intent tonight is not for you to decide what you want to support and what you don't want to support. Just kind of expose you to what's out there and to decide if we want to set a session or an agenda item in the next couple of weeks to look at these. So we as a city know which ones we want to look at. So I'll give you a quick rundown on what's on the page, and then we can answer questions or take public comment. There was a series of bills that came out of the interim local government committee on firefighting. Most of them aren't going to have a significant impact on Livingston. The only one that might is there is a LCMFD4, which is under HJ 25, the second part there. It says regional fire authorities. It would actually give cities and regional fire districts the authority to combine. So at a future time, if we decided that Livingston Fire should combine with Rural 1, it provides the authority to do that and cover areas outside of city limits or however you want to do it. It kind of, I think that was really driven by Belgrade with Central Valley Fire there. Belgrade doesn't have a city fire department, and by law right now they have to because they broke into that class 2 city status. And so this is an attempt for them to be able to maintain Central Valley Fire as the city fire department as well as the regional fire department. I don't think there's a ton, that's something that just tangentially affects us in the future if that's something we were to look at. Specifically in the out years, if the city, started eating into Rural 1's district by annexation, then that might be something that would be worthwhile, or if it was just an efficiency. But that one is out there. There are some drafts out there that deal with affordable housing, so I brought those up since that's a topic we talk about a lot. Talking about using some of the money in the Cole Severance Trust Fund for low-income housing loans, some affordability housing grants, some workforce housing tax credits. So those are all issues that the state is looking at to give tools to local communities to help with low-income or workforce housing. The tax increment financing study legislation, that one actually might have a significant impact on Livingston, and I believe it is in the DOR working group draft. One of the intents of this legislation is that if your TIF is over 15 years old, you can only spend money on debt service. That's it, nothing else. So, and technically you can do debt service or a reserve to pay debt service, but you can have no programs. If that legislation passed and our TIF was not grandfathered, that would mean after we bonded, that would be it for the TIF and the URA as far as projects could go. It would be limited to only paying off that bond for whatever that debt service was. So that is one of the legislation that is out there right now. Gateway local option tax, the draft is in there. That's one that may be sponsored. Local option gas tax is more of a local issue. That's a county issue. That's a county option gas tax where the county could impose that to try and capture some of the tourist dollars as they come through. I think it's up to 2 cents a gallon is the current, and that one is actually currently authorized under state law. So that wouldn't be something that we need to go to the state house. That would just something that would have to be passed at the county level. But that would be one way to try and get some of the visitor/tourist money to help support some of the infrastructure. The nice part about that local option gas tax is like the statewide gas tax, it is limited in what you can spend it on, only to road and street infrastructure. So that would go directly to road and street infrastructure for both the county and the city. The other items there are just ones that people are talking about, minimum wage increases. I believe Representative Dunwell from Missoula is looking at offering a bill on the legalization of marijuana. The local government interim committee was new this year. Although a lot of our issues, that's what was seen. So their continuation will probably be an issue that comes up. I think they were a good advocate for local governments, especially the smaller towns and cities, to have someone to go to at the state and bring items before them. So that's something we may want to look at supporting as that comes up. And then infrastructure bonding is often brought up by the Infrastructure Coalition. That's something they want to look forward to. They would like the state to bond for infrastructure needs and then provide that money to the local communities. So that's kind of a list of the ones that I thought were, one, either big topics right now that are going to go on in the next session, things that we should probably look at and decide if we want to support, oppose, or just stay out of the fray on these. So if you have questions on it, I'd be happy to answer them, or for public comment as well. And then we can decide how we want to go forward, if we want to go forward, and what that looks like.
Let's open it up to public comment first, or questions from the public.
Leslie Feigl, Livingston Chamber. So first of all, last June in 2017, the gas tax that was enacted for the state of Montana that has already increased the bottom line budget for not only Livingston but for Park County and many other the entire state has been a huge help. We are behind the local option gas tax. The gas sales in Park County are number 3 for our economy. So first is guides and outfitters, the second would be the lodging, third is gasoline sales. We just happen to be in this wonderful location between 89 and 90 corridor. So we do have a lot of sales year round in gasoline. However, the other tax, the option tax for the local option, which is a gateway community. Now this is something that both Office of Tourism and the Department of Commerce, we talk about this monthly on our calls. This is something that is really difficult without your entire community behind you, which means not only Livingston as a city, but as a county, as well as some of our other communities, say Clyde Park, Wilsall, smaller communities that should be able to participate in this. And I know by sitting in with the county as well as the city of the ideas and the options that they're looking at. We are looking at a statewide tax. Now the statewide tax, it's very close. And what I'm asking you is to just keep in mind that our community, we have a lot of community that is already struggling to make ends meet. So if you look at a statewide tax that is approximately, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years away from being on the table, it's very close. They're down to a couple of finalities. So that is 3 to 4% tax. And on top of that, you put a local option tax, and that's another 3 to 4%, which you have a maximum on both of those. That's, a 6 to 8% tax for our community for everything you want to enjoy, from buying t-shirts to going out to dinner to going to the local bars. I know that there are other options that we can look at for increasing our funding for roads and infrastructure. And I think that we have to caution ourselves as being an incredible community that has done very well in the last 3 years because of tourism. And with our new promo and our new marketing piece of being a year-round destination, which is what our community has said to me for over the years, that if we start taxing and promoting that we're taxing the back of the tourist, but yet not telling our community members that they are also paying the tax, is just the wrong way about it. We really have to educate our community on what each of these items mean. So both from a state level and what is coming down the road, and then at the city level as well as at the county level. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Do you guys have to sign the day, right?
No. Do you have any other public comments?
Trish Grable, 204 East Callender Street, Livingston. I am an advocate of Livingston getting its own resort tax. And if there is a chance of getting a resort tax, then it goes before the public is a vote. So the public is totally aware of what they're getting into. Let me give you some examples of resort tax that went into effect. Whitefish, Red Lodge, Cook City, Gardner. And look at the difference of what happened in those communities. That in addition to the fact that the public services are not getting money for taking care of our tourists right now. They don't, it puts an additional, we are a tourist town. Our revenue comes from tourism. And if we can advocate for simply raising the amount of population that qualifies as a resort or a resort tax, it's at 5,500 right now. Bob Evinger and I went to the legislature about 8 years ago, and we put a rider on a bill that passed both the House and the Senate that allowed us to lift the population level from 5,500 to 7,500, and it passed both houses. And it went to committee, and at that point, Pat Wegman and Darren Ravenberg were opposed to it, so they went in committee ahead of us, conference committee, and nullified that vote. And it was a huge disappointment to both of us. So we worked so hard to have this happen. But if the community is apprised of the benefits of this, and take a look at the cities that have just flourished with that resort tax, it doesn't have to tax anything that the local people don't want it to tax. But we lack tourism infrastructure in this town, and that is our primary economic driver. So there is really nothing's difficult at looking at raising that level to 8,500, population level to 8,500 people, and so that we could qualify to take it before our voters and see if we can get a resort tax. It is something for this body to consider, it is something for this community to consider. I don't see a downside to it personally. And if you take a look at the cities who have adopted the resort tax, it's been nothing but terrific for them. It doesn't hurt to bring additional money into our town. And that is our primary economic driver. So it is worthy of consideration as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Any other public comment? Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments at this time? So, go ahead, Warren.
The resort tax can only be applied in locations that are 5,500 population or less.
It depends.
And if they're bordering like national park.
Right, like, it depends. If you're an incorporated city, yes, you have to be below 5,500. If you are a tourist resort area, like Big Sky, you have to be under 2,200, I think, 22 or 2,500. So it depends. The big difference, and I guess I'd like to clarify one thing between the local option gas tax and the gateway local option tax. The local option gas tax already exists at the state level, that has already been authorized. The gateway local option tax, you wouldn't be supporting establishing one in Park County or Livingston. It would be supporting getting the authority to go out later for that. It doesn't exist right now as an authorization in the state code. So this is getting it in the state code to authorize it. After that, there would be the process that Tricia was talking about. After that, you'd have to come up with a specific instance for, in this case, there's only 4 counties that would be available to. It would be Gallatin, Park, Flathead, and Glacier, because the rules are the rules for this particular draft is that you'd have to order a national park to be considered disproportionately impacted by tourism to have this option. One of the things that the gateway local option tax says that the resort tax doesn't do is allow you to combine an area and a city. So if Park County decided they wanted to institute this, they could do it in any geographic area they wanted. So they could do a 90 corridor and an 89 south corridor. If Wellstar Clyde Park wanted to be included, then you can have an 89 north corridor. If they didn't, we could leave them out altogether. So it allows you to customize it more specifically to each county, and there is no population. So it's just, if you are one of the counties, you qualify, you can do it individually as a community, or you can do it in conjunction between a community and the county. So that doesn't exist yet. That would be what the support would be for, is to creating legislation that would allow it. And then that would go from there if we wanted to institute it after that.
Any other questions? We're saying something.
That answer.
So, commissioners, one of the requests was to come up with your priorities and send them to Mr. Curtis, which one of categories, one of the city priorities, in the sense of part of our work plan, and then the second part is legislative priorities. Could we get those sent in, and sent to Mr. Curtis so they could then be put together, so our feedback and especially with the legislative priorities, are they more timely at this time?
They're not specifically timely. The session doesn't start till January, obviously, but next week is the annual conference for MLCT. So if we have something that we want to take and carry forward in those sessions, something specific, then that would be useful for me to be able to talk about.
So can we get that to him ASAP? Any other commission?
Made a note of it.
Okay, I'll send an email. Any other comments? So, because we can't really move forward on this until we get the list. Correct? So we don't actually have a motion.
No, there's nothing to approve tonight. This was more just an informational discussion, put some items out there to see if we're interested in talking about it in the future.
Well, I am.
I will.
So next on our agenda is action item C, discuss, approve, deny, approve City of Livingston remote participation policy. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the policy we looked at last meeting. We tabled it until this meeting. There have been no changes in the meantime. If you would like to institute a remote participation policy, this is what I would recommend. I think it covers, it's very clear in all the requirements, the possibilities that you encounter when you start talking remote participation, i.e. people get dropped off a conference call, or if the Skype freezes or whatever it is. It covers all those eventualities. It covers some of the attribution problems. If it's someone on the phone, has an affidavit from the sign when they come back, say, yes, that was me, yes, that's my participation. So there's no question, no one can question it later on. The question put before you is, do you want a remote participation policy? And if you do you like the one that has been provided to you? Because remote participation policy could be, we do not want to approve remote participation. So I think those are the options before you. If you have any questions on the specific policy that's as written, I can answer those.
Commissioners, do you have any questions first or comments on any of the sections? Or public comment, please. We usually have public comment first, so if anyone has any questions or comments on it. James, I didn't even see you.
Hello.
Wow, what's your name?
Can you hear me okay? I speak louder. I was here for the skate park. That's coming up on the agenda, but I saw this one and I was interested in this only because I've been on the commission and had to participate remotely at least once. I just want to make sure that whatever you decide on, I haven't read this policy. So whatever you decide on, that it doesn't hinder the commissioners from participating. I think that would be my concern. So if it does still allow a commissioner who isn't present, but we have here tonight, to participate still by phone, because I read in the paper that we're considering video. And I think that it might make a little more difficult for a commissioner to participate by video, especially if you're on the beach in Waikiki or something like that. But phone might work, so I would just, give my 2 cents, and let's make sure it doesn't make it difficult for a commissioner to participate when they're away. And I believe that the community enjoys having all the diverse opinions that we can have, and this won't make it difficult. So those are my thoughts on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. So in this policy, James, it does say audio and
Oh, great.
video.
Good.
So both.
Great, thank you very much.
Jack Woodville, first off, does this policy just cover the commission, or does it cover the voluntary boards like parks and trails and historic preservation, stuff like that?
This particular one just covers the commission. Once the commission is done, then we'll look at if that policy is going to get pushed down to the other boards.
I think it would be nice to be able to do that for the other boards.
Thank you, Jim. Any other public comment? Commissioners, any questions? On the policy?
What is that board that make? Skip that,
Well, let's
We're
talk
not on
about,
that yet.
we're working on the remote participation policy first. But no, it could apply to that board, so.
Yeah.
One, I did ask this question earlier of Michael, but is 48 hours prior to the meeting long enough to set up the system and make sure that we're, set up correctly? And I thought, and when I asked him, it seemed logical that if the meeting's on a Tuesday, if the request was by Monday, so that we could get it set up, that would be enough. Would you guys agree? The second part I liked about it is the audio and video both, like James asked. And then some of the legal aspects of, and maybe James, you could answer this, or Michael, depending on, to explain the 5-minute recess issue. So in this policy, when your phone call is dropped, because the person was participating and then was dropped from the call, it gives us 5 minutes to reconnect. And 3 times, if we lose the person 3 times, then at that time, then they are out. But there's attempts made at least 3 times, which I really like that. I think that it was a fair use of that part of the policy for inactivity without, and we can't stop a meeting forever. That's the point. But any feedback on that section that you'd like to explain?
The state's very clear in the fact that commissioner or from any board can't vote on an issue unless they've been privy to all deliberation. So if the conversation continued while a commissioner participating remotely was off the line, they legally would not meet that standard. There would be discussion, whether it was public comment or commissioner comment, that the commissioner who was disconnected wouldn't get a hearing. And then they would still vote on that without hearing all the deliberations. So the policy was an attempt to make sure that if someone drops off the line, that we stop conversation, that everyone understands that we have to stop talking about this while we try to get them reconnected. If we can't get them reconnected in 5 minutes, we'll continue. It doesn't mean they're out for the rest of the meeting. It means they can't vote on that particular item. If somewhere in that item they come back on, they won't be able to vote for that item, but as we move on to the next item, if they're there for that entire deliberation, they can vote on that item. It was just a way to make sure that we were following all the rules as far as commissioners hearing the entire deliberation for an item.
And then another question that I had is, do we limit the number of times of calling in? So if you have a commissioner and for 4 months straight they're calling in, is there a time limit, or do we just accept that as a okay thing? Have any thoughts?
Looking at number 3, expectation up here, can allow delay absences. pretty much covers it, I mean, because ideally, we want that commissioner present. Yeah, as far as, successive times, I guess it'd have to be a case by case issue, you know, if somebody's actually bedridden or, you know, ambulatory, whatever, yeah.
Then that's covered under personal illness.
Right,
But say
personal disability.
they were on a vacation
That-
and they really wanted to participate in the organization.
I think that should be up to the discretion of the chair. of the business. Can I see it?
Well, that's the chair, a minimum of 48 hours.
But also in chapter, or in 3, the chair makes the determination that it is
Valid.
valid,
Yeah.
one of the 5
All
valid.
right.
But it's 5 valid points, so I mean, if you want to waive that exception,
So,
as long as we vote on, if the commission votes on it.
so at this,
I think everything's covered, that was the only
everything's
thing that's
covered,
kind
we're
of
covered
gray.
enough. And then one last point is there's, remote doesn't, isn't included in closed meetings.
Closed or quasi.
Executive session.
Yeah, so if it's a closed meeting just for privacy concerns, it would be allowed to participate remotely. Or if it's a quasi judicial hearing, where it's a zoning change or something, where you're making a legal decision, I think that has a higher requirement for participation, physical participation than a normal commission. So those would be the two areas it's not allowed. And for the remote participation policies that I found across the country, that is pretty standard. Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
You like it, Jay?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Well, Jay, you worked on it a lot, didn't you? Then I think you did a good job. Yeah. It's very thorough without,
That we just remember to have that hand when the situation arises.
right, right.
Where is that document?
So, do we have a motion from the commission on action item C?
I'll make a motion for the action item C. Second.
We have a motion by Schwartz and a second by Friedman. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Hoffman,
Yes?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedman,
Four.
Commissioner Beebe.
Motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have action item D. Discuss, approve, deny the future of the City of Livingston Skate Park Board. Mr. Produce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is another issue I don't expect a decision on this evening, but I wanted to start the conversation. If you haven't been down to the skate park lately, it is amazing how often it's used and how much it's used. It is, I don't know if I've been down there and seen no one in it, even when it's raining, and I wouldn't be caught dead in it. People are using it all the time. We've installed a new water fountain, which is great, but I think the skate park and the skate park boards have matured to a point where we can move them into a new realm. Up to this point, it's been a city board, and that was through the construction phase. I think that was appropriate and worked really well. But I think they have gotten to a point, and we have gotten past the construction point, where we can go to a different structural function that more aligns with the other parties that we work with. So like LYSA or LYBA, where they aren't necessarily a city board, but we'll create maintenance agreements with them. I know they're currently working on creating their own 501(c)(3) out, it's not under an umbrella anymore, it is their own. And I think that is probably the direction we want to head as we work that way, so we can, work through them with that process, wait until they get their full status up and running, and then set up the maintenance agreements, set up the agreements that we need. And I don't think they need to be a official city board anymore, that they can stand on their own as, they could be LYGA, the Livingston Youth Gravity Association, or whatever they want to be. But that we can then partner with them and continue to help with the skate park, work on, landscaping, just like we did with LYSA, the Tennis Association, Baseball Association. So I just wanted to bring that up as I think a direction we can head, and then, that would be eliminating a city board, which I think I would love to give them more flexibility, choosing their own members and being in charge of their own priorities, and work with them in that way. And I would let a couple of the board members up to see if they agree with me.
Please, come on up, public.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you all. It's been a long time since the last time I spoke to you guys. We built a skate park. We'd like to say thank you to the city administration, Shannon Holmes for being patient, and the support of the city commission. So we've built a skate park. We've handed out lots of pads, lots of helmets. Basically, what these are indicators that we've matured into as a skateboarder is about ready to say it. An NGO. We're going to create a non-governmental organization. So with this will basically allow us to do exactly what Michael is saying. I think we've got the funding mechanism to consistently raise money every year. We'd also like to enlarge in our scope. That would include more gravity sports like BMX, pump tracks, and there's a whole wide array of them. And until then, we're definitely working on our nonprofit status. It will take us a little while to network that. It's primarily time. We foresee within 12 to 18 months, we should have some sort of definitive organization that will be separate from Tom Schellenberg and NHN. That's who we've been umbrella with the last couple of years. And if you have any questions, yes.
I have a question. Did the board as a whole make a recommendation?
I planted this seed before Skaterpalooza and was asking the question if we were ready to stand on our own feet, and the board seemed pretty unanimous regarding that idea. We discussed it last month and actually voted an action on it. So we have an action item that approves us going forward as our own nonprofit.
Any other questions for Jared?
Great job. Yeah. Once again, I mean, I was there over the weekend watching, the respect that everybody has for each other. That's in the bowls and everything else is really nice to see. And the great age differences too. Very nice.
Yeah, I really believe we got a good park coming.
Oh, yeah.
This park, so.
One last thing. I appreciate just your hard work, Derek. You've done a lot. And I also appreciate, because I think you've been up here with us, well, when I've been here for at least 4 years. And your communications and all your updates were so helpful to help us support the skate park as well as the community. So we really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Any other public comment?
I'll be brief. Inviting all the commissioners and administration to come out and bring your skateboards to the skate park. Be sure to bring your helmets and knee pads as well. But I just wanted to express my gratitude to the commission for supporting the skate park for all these years, for having it as an advisory board for as long as I can remember, and for supporting this endeavor and making it happen this year for the construction phase. Without your support and the administration's recommendation support, it wouldn't happen this year. And you can see the type of enthusiasm that is out there. It's quite amazing for the kids. And just so you know, we are already starting the process to initiate the 501c3. We have an accountant in town who's volunteered their time to move this forward for us. I'm not sure exactly the time frame. The last time I heard a time frame for accomplishing this was about 9 months. So this, I don't know why it takes so long. Maybe because the IRS is understaffed or what, they have a lot going on. But just want to let you know that it's already initiated, and I think personally, and I believe the board is on board with it as well, as Derek mentioned, for taking this step, because I think it's the appropriate step for youth organizations supporting the youth of this community to have a separate nonprofit and a working maintenance agreement with the city that follows a lot of the maintenance agreements we've already established for the last 5 to 8 years. So anyway, want to express my gratitude. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your hard work. Thank you.
James did a lot of work to get this part going as well, so we
It was more-
appreciate you.
encouragement. Hard work, Derek and the boys did a lot of, all the hard work.
Yes.
It just is an update on the finances. We haven't got the final numbers right now, but as of this point, I think the skate park was within $700 of paying off the entire amount. So that includes URA money was never actually needed. So they raised almost the entire money, and they may even be over that hurdle. They may be completely done. We just haven't audited all the accounts yet. So that was an incredible job. So it's out there, it's operating, and it's paid for.
Show those bankers we can do this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great. So one last thing I need to say on the skate park, one of the things, I'm an administrator in a school, so I know a lot of kids and I know a lot of parents, but I have to say I see multiple parents out there or adults, which really does matter to me as an administrator, so I appreciate that. The people who are volunteering just to watch and the work they do and how they help ease tensions or pick up a kid. It's amazing. So do we need to make a motion on this or?
No, that was just more informational.
Okay, you don't have to say at this time to.
Once we're ready to actually dissolve the board, we want to come with that specific motion. I just kind of wanted to get it out there where they can move in the right direction. You'll talk about it a little bit.
Okay. Last action item tonight is discuss, approve, deny scheduling dates for listening sessions, inviting community comments regarding our future growth. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Future growth is kind of nebulous, but really what I'm wrapping up in this is the Front Street Extension and Crossing project, as well as the next two phases of the Downtown Streets project and the Main Street parking configuration discussion. So there's 3 items that we're going to move forward with that we need to just kind of give you the outline for how I see the public process going. And if you guys have other desires or other needs, we can talk about it. The construction is probably the easiest one. We're just going to continue with the method that we used before. But instead of being the business owners that were affected by the last construction season, we will get a group of business owners that are, or property owners that are affected by the next 2 phases of construction. And we'll start that same weekly meeting, maybe not yet, but once we get the construction underway, certainly. But we'll start that soon to get some at least tentative schedules out there, what it looks like, what we can do. So we'll get everybody notified of that as quickly as possible. And then once we move forward with that, we'll bring some updates to you as well. I think that's the easiest one. The Front Street Extension Crossing project, we're looking at a series of 3 to 4 public meetings. We'll probably do some here, maybe some on the north side to try and capture some more of the north side participants, since they're the ones mostly affected by this, especially by the SID portion. But we may see if there's some other locations we could do. I have enlisted the help of the Extension Office to help facilitate those, so they will be the facilitators. Additionally, they have some equipment that will help us get some actual statistics and some data from the people that attend, so they'll be able to get little voting buttons and be able to actually go through a series of questions so we can get some demographic information about who attended the meetings, as well as some indication of support, non-support for either all aspects or different aspects of the meeting. So I'm going to try and hit a Saturday and then probably 2 or 3 Thursday nights. Let's try and get the Saturday in before full hunting season opens up to get as many people as possible. But 3 to 4 of those are what we're looking at, probably over mid to late October and maybe beginning of November to get that information compiled. So that's going to be more of a people can come, see what the plan is, they can make their comments, we'll go through and get as much data as we can so that we can return that data, both you and the community as a whole, and kind of get some actual statistics on how things are looking on that one. The last one for the downtown configuration, we're kind of holding off on that one until we get the signage in that we wanted to for this year, so that the project was complete for this phase of construction. And then we'll probably look at a couple of open public meetings, and then maybe forming a committee, the city manager committee at that point. Probably 7 to 11 people, depending on what it looks like for people that want to participate, and let them run through some of the different options and come up with recommendations, and then we'll run those through the staff and see where to go from there. So those are kind of the 3 big picture processes that we'd like to go through for those 3 items. If there was something else you were looking for or something else you'd like, I am open to suggestions.
So the first thing is that we did tentatively schedule a meeting, you might have heard, I don't know, on the 29th. So we're not doing the September 29th meeting at this time. I'm gonna wait for more planning. And then at the end of October, that would be around the time to start the first meeting. And then move forward through November, as long as it takes to those 3-4 meetings. And then the downtown city, or streets planning, and what words should I use to describe that?
We'll call it street configuration.
Yes.
It's not the actual project, the construction project, it's just how we.
Yeah, and how do we, signage to parking to, so that would be January.
Probably January is a good time to shoot for. If things go super well, we might do mid-December, but with the holidays, I guess in March.
Yeah. It's hard to get people. So, any questions?
I was approached by 2 different business owners regarding the next phase of construction. Just for what it's worth, they feel they will still be impacted by this coming construction. Would like to see it delayed for 2 years, take a year off. It's just so. Just to let you know, yeah, 2 business owners that went through it don't want to go through it next year. They think that will really just put them over the edge. So if there's some way we can lay their fears, that would be nice to look into that. But, I expect that to come up.
Madam Chair. Is public comment allowed on this?
We haven't opened it to public comment, but any other questions or statements before we open it? So,
Is this,
go ahead.
is this regarding, information about rail crossings also?
Well,
Yeah,
and the
it's all part of
crossing in general, so this is more about, so the action item, to be clear, everyone, is not about our opinions necessarily on those issues. It's more, or anyone's opinion at best, it's more about planning, how do you want to move forward in our listening sessions. So at this time, we've organized through Michael, looking at the timeline and everything for the crossing planning to start at the end of October and moving into November, and then potentially January for the downtown traffic. I know it's a configuration plan. Okay, so do you have any questions on that? Anyone?
No, I just wanted to relay 2 comments, one from last night and one from this morning regarding it. I received a phone call at 5:45 last night from a 50-year resident of Livingston, and she was sitting at the 5th Street crossing waiting for the train. And she was upset, and she was also very polite. But her comment boiled down to, when are you going to do something about it? And this morning I heard from a lifelong resident of Livingston that, why do you want to promote Bozeman East? So I'm just relaying that because that's the kind of information that's needed to put out to let both people know what the options are and what the impacts are. but I thought the timing was pretty good. Thank you.
I got the call probably at 5 to 6. The same woman probably.
I got the first one.
I said, why don't you go down under the underpass? And she got mad at me. I mean, that's what I do. When I start to see a crowd get there, I keep moving. The thing was, she was trying to look for me to do something.
Right.
And felt awful. But, so we've been living with this for several years, decades. And we have to solve it at some point, no question about it.
So is that enough information for tonight? The future plan for, so as far as the question to the public, for public comment, it's more about the listening session. So Patricia, it's not against you. I'm not saying that, but if you have something on the listening session, and then bring your ideas to that, please. So come on up.
As you know, I attend, this is Patricia Grable, I attend these meetings. I haven't heard anything in the meetings about plans for the downtown. Couple questions. Is the plan to go ahead and do the rest of Main and then do Second Street next year? Was that the original plan? I mean, I don't see where it's published anywhere. Has that been published anywhere?
Which, depends on which plan you're talking about. The overall plan, like the phased plan,
Yeah, phase one.
the next two phases are the next two blocks of Main as well as Clark Street. To the outs or all
And
the way
then,
to,
is there then
B to
another
the out.
phase after that?
There's many phases after that.
Is that published anywhere?
That's part of the PER.
And I've seen several PERs, so.
I think it's on
this
the
up-
website,
when was
the
this one
documents.
updated? I just want to know,
Is the what?
because this commission has, to my knowledge, passed about 3 different PERs in the last 4 years. So when was this one passed?
This is the current one that, it's out on the website. I think it's on, is it under the projects page, Sharon? Or is it
I'm not
on-
sure it's. you
Is
know
there
what,
any
it's a-
chance that
it
we
is
can
in the
get the newspaper to publish that so that people know what the plans are? Please. I mean, I go to all these meetings because I haven't heard a word.
Well, and I wouldn't,
And I read every PER, by the way.
well, this one, I mean, it's the same one that we went off of last year for the first, the calendar and Main Street phase. It's those were 2 phases from the PER as well. I think there were phases 3 and 4. And
It
the
was
next,
12 years altogether.
yes, it was 12 phases altogether, and that was phases 3 and 4. Well,
It said 12 years.
it was originally, the idea was to do only 1 phase a year, but we were able to lessen impact and save money by combining.
So then, how many are combined to 3 years, 3 different phases then?
This last project was 2 phases. The intent for the next year, we haven't decided on anything yet. There's nothing has been put out there yet. But
I just like to.
the intent would be 2 more phases, so it'd be
Okay,
phases
great.
5 and 6.
And we're having discussions on scheduling a meeting, our first meeting in the next, hopefully next week.
Right.
If not the week after.
Okay.
That'll
Well,
follow the same
I
format
would
as the last
be
meetings.
proactive and try to lobby the newspaper to be sure to get the information out to the public. The other thing is, as far as hearings on an underpass, I want to say that there's a couple of new developments, and I wonder if those hearings would allow for a meeting with the city manager to talk about those new developments regarding the overpass. It has been proposed coming down Lewis Street. And then there was never the ability to go over at Fifth Street because there wasn't enough area to gain the ground you needed. But if you came down Lewis Street and then you actually come over kind of this side of the tracks to do an overpass in downtown area. The traffic study indicated that was an F still at the overpass of Fifth Street. This is a remedy that in my discussions with organizations like MRL, they are very frustrated with the underpass right now that we have, and are willing to at least discuss with us what's happening with that underpass, because it's a bottleneck for MRL. So there are some new developments that could allow us to have an overpass and not have an F rating for our Fifth Street crossing, and have some possible other solutions that Dr. for. So I just wanted to say, if we're gonna schedule these things, perhaps we can take these others into consideration.
I think that the public comments at that time will be heard, you know, regarding how everything from the SID to, you know, what do people want and how do we get there and how do we pay for it? So I think you're gonna have a place to speak of your.
I think they laid it on the chart, kind of, if you don't see the other proposals. It's just my concern. And I would encourage you to look at what they did in Whitefish. Overpass, right out of the downtown, gorgeous, hardly notice it.
Thank you. So one last thing on this, so we discussed when the crossing meetings will start. We're missing the growth policy. As far as where do we see that time-wise?
It's all based on funding, and there's no timeline on it right now. Now, we were awarded the CDBG grant for the impact fee study, which is great. Once that is done, we can go out for another CDBG impact or grant for a road policy. We can look at trying to fund it through other sources, but right now that timing is completely dependent on funding.
I think the impact fees are probably more.
Yeah, and we passed our down for our Main Street, and maybe they will have.
That could be a different funding stream, at least partial.
Yeah.
We may have to combine 5 or 6 different funding sources to get it to work, but we'll see what we can do.
So you're up to city manager comments.
I have a very few for you tonight, just a couple basically updates. I already talked about that one, so I don't have to talk about it. An update on union negotiations. We came to an agreement with the firefighters union this week. You should hopefully get that cleaned up and signed. Collective bargaining agreement for you in the next meeting, so we'll get that accomplished. So that was a good session, so that's good. We are looking at creating, or I'm looking at creating under the city manager, a committee for electric charging in the city. We're looking at trying to tap into some of the VW settlement funds to create some electric charging stations in the city, hopefully in areas that would draw people downtown so they could charge up before they head out to the park. So you'll see some information on that. It's been done on a volunteer basis up to this point, but I'd like to provide some of the backing of the city to it, so they can go to meetings with the EQ and actually be able to say they're representing the city in those prospects. So we're looking at some electric charging options for the city. The last one, and I'm just going to say it, and then we'll talk about it next time, is defeasance. It's a fancy word. It's some auditing thing that I don't quite understand yet. What it really comes down to is with the current debt service for the wastewater treatment plant, we would have to look at a significant rate hike next year to cover it as far as our auditing is go. But there is a financial tool called defeasance where we would set aside the principal for one of our existing bonds, and then we could basically remove that from our books. So it would require setting aside a certain amount in an account that's set aside to equal one of our sewer revenue bonds that we passed back in 2010. I would take that off our books, and it would probably either greatly reduce any increases to sewer rates, or maybe even eliminate them. But it would at least get us a lot better than if we did nothing. So that's a tool that once I'm smarter on it, I'll bring it in front of you next time, and we can look at doing that. But I think it doesn't cost us anything extra, but it does allow us not to have to charge extra to cover the debt service. So it's kind of a financial tool to allow us not to pass that cost on to the ratepayers.
Any other comments? commissioners? Mr. Reagan? Mr. Friedman?
I was just warned by the woman I called the other night that she does not want to hear the word study anymore. Just a warning. And I don't know how we, that's a tough issue. Otherwise, I pass to you.
I'll kind of echo Milt's sentiment. Good friend of mine that lives across the tracks over there. Just do it. Let's move forward. And I agree. Other than that, I just publicly want to, it was a pleasure working with Sarah Sanders on this commission, and she will be next. To you.
Just a reminder to my fellow commissioners, get your priorities in, okay, to the city manager. I have an example if you need that I wrote. I did it yesterday morning. I'm not gonna get all cloudy on it. And then I wanted to just clarify something I didn't say earlier on, there was something reported in the paper about, insinuated that the commission didn't cover or didn't address the issue of VRBOs or vacation rentals because of some of the commissioners owning 2 or more, is what the paper said, of the commissioners owning properties that are VRBOs. And I want to clarify to the public that I do not own any, and as when I asked everyone else, they didn't either. So I'm not sure where the paper came up with that issue or that statement, but I'd like to clarify the truth. And the other thing is that the community did address it through the planning board, and it was brought to them, and they chose to not bring it to the commission at that time, feeling it wasn't an issue to be addressed, or a big enough issue at the time to be addressed. So that's all I have for tonight. So, sorry. That's it. So do I have a motion from the commission for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Friedman and a second by Schwartz. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This meeting of the Livingston City Commission ends at 7:59.
See
I talked to